Welcome everybody into another edition of Warm Weather Fans, the Sun Belt podcast. It is full on. We are into bowl season. We've seen a playoff game. The Sun Belt competed in its first ever playoff appearance on Saturday night. We'll get to that and we'll get to the bowl results. But before we do all that, Zeke, how's it going, man?
It's good, man. We had a week full. It was awesome. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, all Sun Belt games to watch. And I mean, it just kicks off really all of bowl season. We've talked about before how we're glad that it was front loaded. But this kicks off, just a month long football frenzy that I'm very, very excited to watch over the coming month. There were some interesting games. Some close ones, some a little more disinteresting. You talked about the Sun Belt's debut in the college football playoffs, which, the way things are going and the way the folks in power are talking could maybe just be their last if ESPN had its way. So here's where we are, and I'm glad that we get to work through them today.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to get JMU's going to get lumped in with Tulane, and how Tulane basically just mailed in a playoff game against a Power 5 school. And JMU is up and down. It was basically a tale of two halves, but they were down by so much they couldn't really make a game of it. Yeah, unfortunately, to the powers that be, they're probably going to say, if you don't kind of go undefeated as a G5 team moving forward, we're probably going to put in a Notre Dame, one of those teams that are like on the fringes moving forward. And do I want to see that? Of course not. And I've lambasted the committee a number of times. But yeah, it's just unfortunate for us, like in the G5 realm. And it's gotten to the point where it's like, I don't want to see a G5 playoff separated from the actual college football playoff, but people bitch about it so much that I'm kind of just like, fine. At a certain point, like, I mean, I have a 5-year-old. There comes a point in my head where if she complains enough, I'm just like, fine. Like, unless it's something dangerous, I'm just like,
right,
fine. You want to have that lollipop, that dum-dum lollipop? Sure. Whatever. Like, if you complain enough, I'm just like, I acquiesce. Like, I can't deal with it anymore. And like the Josh Pates of the world, the Joel Klatts of the world, the Kirk Herbstreits of the world, I'm like, you guys saw Notre Dame in the playoff last year. They made the championship game, but they were the most boring team of all time to watch. Did you want to watch that happen again? Do we really think that they're going to put up a different fight if they're playing, I don't know, Ole Miss? Like, they're probably getting beat similar to, maybe a little more competitive than like Tulane was, but they're not beating Oregon. They're not beating Ole Miss. So like, what would, other than just saying we want the TV dollars, what's the drive behind that?
I think for now I've still got my guards up on a G5 playoff, because to some degree it's like, it's not like you're watching the FCS playoffs. It's not like you're watching, like, we already have that. We've already split Division I up. And again, the Joel Klatts, the Herbstreits, the ESPNs, the Feinbaums, they're not churning in to watch Montana State play.
Right.
They're not watching the nearly decade of North Dakota State, South Dakota. So it's like, why offer that if you're just going to? What really frustrates me, I think, is that I'm going to use they as a super all-encompassing. This means the SEC folks, the Big Ten folks, the teams, the talking heads. This means it's a very broad stroke, but they are upset and they want G5 kind of to no longer be a part of this. But they're saying, why don't you G5 do the legwork to do this? Create your own playoff. Instead, I think, how about you just do what you've been threatening for however long? Create your Super League. Go do this. We saw this in Europe several years ago, where it's like the Manchester Cities and the Chelseas and the Liverpools and the Barcelonas of the world were like, we're not happy that Croatia's second place team gets to compete with us in the Champions League. And so instead of, they didn't say Croatia, go create your own Croatian, Balkan Super League. They said, all right, we're going to take on and create our own Super League. That fell apart. That was a whole thing like 5 years ago.
I remember
but they took that burden on themselves. They say, we don't want this. We know that we can get more. So we're going to go create more, more TV revenue, more, frankly, just more eyes, a product that will have a more eyes per event kind of rating average. But they took that upon themselves. So it baffles me, and I don't understand it. I don't know if this is like I think you could really extract this into like a social commentary thing, and I'm not going to because I don't know how. But it's like you have a problem, but you want me to fix it for you. You have a problem with me,
right?
Hanging out, I'm your annoying
change.
Yes, all of your friends like me,
right?
But you don't like me,
right?
So you tell me, hey, I need you to stop hanging out with those guys. What are we doing?
I don't know. I hate it too because it's like they want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want it basically to be separated. But when it comes time, if they play like a 9-game conference schedule, those other 3 games, they're like, hey, G5 teams, why don't we just throw you on the schedule? And it's like, wait a minute, hold on. We're different levels of competition, right? In your eyes. So why, other than just paying us, why do you guys want to play a G5 team? We're dirt under you guys' fingernails. Like, what? Why would you even want to play us? Like, go play, Notre Dame or whatever. You need a Marshall or whatever to like fill your schedule. Go play Miami. Go play, Cal or something. Like, don't. Like, what, scheduling us, like we're nothing to you, remember? Like you remember you saying that like when it came time to pick us for the playoffs. So like you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say that Saban was like, these guys are basically AAA ball to MLB, and from that's such a flawed comparison because it's like, well, wait a minute now, when did the Yankees get to go play the Louisville Bats? When did that happen during the baseball season? Oh wait, no. They didn't. So it's
the Yankees and the Tampa Bay Rays or like the Oakland Athletics. It's like we're in the same league. You're spending the money. You're paying Shohei. You're getting Juan Soto for like $500 quadrillion a year, and then only paying him like $1 a year for the next 10 years. Doing some weird accounting with it. But you still have to go play Tampa. You still have to go play, Oakland. I guess are the 2 best examples. So it's not like AAA and MLB, because even in weak divisions, the division winner gets his playoff spot.
Right.
That's why we have the wild cards. It's such like, do they not see it? Do they see it and ignore it? Like, where's the dissonance here?
That's what I said. They want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want to say, we'll throw you guys on the schedule for a free win. It's not always a free win. Go ask Notre Dame, go ask Texas A&M, go ask Nebraska, all of the teams,
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt, like Tennessee, going back years for Georgia State, go ask those teams. But they want to schedule them and they want you to be on the schedule and they want it to count, in the way that like an FCS team doesn't count toward your bowl total, which we saw App suffer from years back. But when postseason time comes along, they're like, oh, no, you guys aren't on our level. And it's like, well, wait a minute. We just played y'all and we're in the FBS. And they're like, no, you're not. And so I thought about this, and this was like a shower thought I had today. And I hate that this has to happen. But I think what has to happen for them to change their mind, and this is the only example I could come up with. And unfortunately, I think this is what we would have to do as G5 teams to get some legitimacy. You have to have a team, and I'm just using Liberty because of their specific situation. You have to have almost an oversized, out-of-place G5 team that has all of this donor money and all of this NIL stuff, and Jamie Chadwell's the coach. I think you have to have a team like that go to the playoff and just spend out their rear end and win a game, because the normal G5s don't have those budgets. And there's a reason why Liberty does. And I'm not getting into all that. But I think, sadly, that's what's going to have to happen is like an oversized G5, like a Liberty, who probably shouldn't be a G5 if you look at just money spent and things like that. They're going to have to just spin through the nose and eventually put it together and go 11-1, 12-0, and then play in the playoff. And you need viewers and everybody else to look around and go, oh, shoot, this team probably shouldn't be a G5, but they're in a game with Florida State or something in the playoff. I don't know. All right, let's move on to the.
Well, real quick, I want.
Okay,
no, I want to just shamelessly plug ourselves. Something you said on our Twitter, Jimmy Beast. You just built that big old amusement park in Saudi Arabia. We'll call them the Southern Miss Beasts. No one will have a problem with that.
No, ULM.
No. Again, no problem, no qualms. No. Georgia State Beasts. Fine by me. Turner Park or Turner Field needs a renovation anyway.
Yeah.
Let's get into the games. I'm sorry. Yeah.
All right. So Tuesday, Jacksonville State defeated Troy 17-13. Goose Crowder came out. I think when I previewed this, I didn't quite realize the extent to which his ankle was really messed up. I thought that he had enough time between the conference championship game and this game to heal enough to be able to play. And it just seemed like he couldn't. I mean, he tried to gut it out and it just didn't work. Unfortunately, he's going to get, by me, or maybe you too, is going to get slapped with the injury prone label. He's been injured both of the last 2 years. He broke his collarbone in 24 and ended up losing the starting spot late in the season to Matthew Caldwell, who ran off a couple of wins. And then this year he gets hurt in the Memphis game. And then Tucker Gilcrease plays basically that middle chunk of the season, like 6 or 7 games. And then Crowder came back and played a couple of games. They played pretty well. He played in the conference championship game and just took a beating. And now he was injured there. He's injured here. I hate to say this too. I'm dusting off an old take I had after the Memphis game. I think if you're Jared Parker, I don't think you can have Tucker Gilcrease on this roster next year. To be dead honest, you can't. Here's 2 things you can't do. You can't have a injury-prone starting quarterback the way that Goose Crowder is, and I know that the tackles are hurt, and I understand all that, but he puts himself in harm's way during times where he probably should just give up on the play and throw the ball away and live to play another down. You can't have an injury-prone starting quarterback and a backup that is as... Have we seen a guy that has a bigger disparity between his peak and his valley than Tucker Gilcrease could throw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns against Texas State and win in overtime one week. And then the next week he's, 2 picks, 110 yards, 48% completion. I mean, he completed 50% of his passes for 116 yards for 2 interceptions. His yards per attempt in this game was 4.8. He did have a longer ADOT, but he wasn't connecting on any of them, obviously. And so anytime he's out, anytime Crowder's out, you truly have no idea what you're getting out of Gilcrease. And the fact that your only score touchdown in this game was on a strip sack kind of reinforces that, where it's like you already didn't have a running game with Tay Meadows, and he's in the portal. Your starting quarterback's hurt. Both your tackles are hurt, and Gilcrease doesn't hit that ceiling enough unless you're playing one of the worst defenses in the country, it seems like.
Yeah, I think it's a very cut and dry. Having looked at it, having followed this kind of Gilcrease arc throughout the season, but when you look back at it, if you are Jared Parker or Troy or whoever, right? And you look back at it and you say, yeah, we had those valleys where he's throwing, 60, if not below % for 180 yards, no touchdowns and interception. And by the way, he's also taking like 3 sacks. Dude's an absolute statue in the pocket. They went 500 with him at quarterback. Again, that's not the bar for Troy. They were just in a conference championship game. But as a backup, a guy who, it's not like Tucker Kilcrease is licking his chops, looking at the portal and saying, "Oh, which job am I going to take?"
Right.
It's going to be a pretty barren opportunity for him, should he want to leave. So, I think the idea that he needs to be completely off the roster next year is a little extreme, because he's shown that he can, at the very least, win games. You're right; it's against the ULMs, it's against the Texas State, it's against the South Alabamas of the world. Troy did not score points really at all when they started to play the Old Dominions, the James Madisons.
No.
Even Arkansas State, they only put up 10 points against one of the, again, worst defenses in the conference. So I think he's still there. I think he's probably the backup next year. It's just a matter of, I think the bigger concern is you cannot go into next year thinking it's going to be Bruce Crowder. You simply can't.
Well, okay. So with what you just said about Kilcrease and what you just said about Crowder, you have to bring a third quarterback in who could play as the backup and maybe push to be the starter as well. It's like, that's a tough sell for a guy coming in. It's like, hey man, you can come in and compete. You could be anywhere from our starter to our QB3. We'll just have to see. And I think a lot of guys would be like, nope. There are other places where I have more of a kind of a concrete opportunity. The reason I said that about Kilcrease is just because, again, that's such a tough sell for a quarterback coming in to be like, you might push Crowder for playing time, and you probably will play if you're our number 2, but you might be behind Kilcrease at the end of the day, and we don't know. And I'm just like, we have 2 seasons of film on Kilcrease, and he's more on the Aiden Armenta side than he is like a diamond in the rough. Braylon Braxton, a Colton Joseph who was sitting behind someone else, an Alonzo Barnett who was sitting behind McLeod, one of those types of guys. So I'm just like, right, if you need somebody in who's like a middle reliever in the MLB and can just like eat innings, then sure, Kilcrease is your guy. If you need a guy when you need to score and you can't put the ball in the end zone against Jacksonville State, a team that is built around the run with a running back that wasn't in the game, didn't show up for the game, it's pretty bad. And so I'm just like, okay, if you're Jared Parker, what do you do with the quarterback spot next year?
I mean, I think there's what makes the most sense to us and what is going to happen, right? And I think there's a disparity. I agree with your idea that it is a tough sell, so you've got to kick one to the curb between Crowder and Kilcrease if you want to bring in a third guy.
And it's pretty obvious to me which one should be kicked to the curb.
Oh, I mean, certainly, because at actually, I don't know, because in a world where you kick Kilcrease, right? Say you go, you bring in, Joe 3-star as your QB1, Crowder behind him, knowing that Crowder can't stay healthy. QB1 goes down, Crowder comes in, you're 3 snaps away from playing Daniel Beal.
Yeah, but sometimes it's a Samari Collier.
I suppose.
That's what I'm saying, though, is like, I would rather. This is like the opposite of that Family Guy mystery box question where it's like, it could be anything, even a boat. It's like if someone offered you, like, I don't know, broccoli that was uncooked, and they're like, you can either have this uncooked broccoli or you could have whatever's behind door number 3. Are you like, no, I'm crunching down on that broccoli? Or are you like, I'm seeing what's behind door number 3?
I don't want Billy Wiles. I don't want Daniel Beal. There are so many bad quarterbacks. And I don't know. I think we've been really spoiled with these kind of not diamond in the rough, but needle in a haystack guys where it was hard to tell that Samari Collier was going to transfer from a community college and become the best quarterback on his team. There's a 70% chance that doesn't work out, right? So,
well, that's my point, though, is like, what Kilcrease is. He's played here for 2 years. What are the chances all of a sudden he makes a huge jump in the offseason and he's like an average level? He's the 5th best quarterback in the conference next year. Let's say Crowder goes down week 3 What are the chances that Gilcrease are the chances what you just said lower than Gilcrease making that jump and becoming the sixth best quarterback in the conference next year after game 3? I would say those chances are massively lower than the chances that he's just magically figured it out in one off season. And he's like, hey guys, I've been okay to borderline unplayable for 2 years now. But this off season, I'm really putting my nose to the grindstone and figuring it out. And it's just kind of like,
I guess,
those guys don't do that
to make that decision though. It's, I think this is more of a question about how close is Troy, right? How close are they going to be back next year? Let's say you get the sixth best, the league average quarterback. How close are they, right? And do you need a guy like Tucker Gilcrease who can hold the fort down? He's not going to win you the conference title, but he's going to hold the fort down. Or are you willing to risk that 70-30, 80-20 that you find that diamond? That's the evaluation that you have to run. How close is Troy with your league average quarterback? And we don't know that yet. We haven't seen the portal. We don't know what their recruiting class looks like. But that's the evaluation. And I think if you think you're close, if you think you're the favorites to repeat in the West, maybe you roll out Goose Crowder and Tucker Gilcrease again. It's not going to be sexy, but you have a finite floor. Whereas if you think, we're going to have a down year, we're going to sneak into a bowl game, 6-7 wins, kick one out, say, pick whichever you like. They're both juniors. They can both still develop. Pick your higher potential guy and say, whatever D2 guy wants to come and try out for this job, whatever 3-star local quarterback wants to come in and compete as a redshirt freshman or something. So it's an evaluation of how close is Troy. And I don't know. I think just very, very gut reaction, having not seen the portal and not seen their recruiting class. I don't know if they're that close.
I don't know. I'm a ceiling guy. Like, I would rather shoot for the moon and fail than just be like, no, I'm just laying up on a par 4 and I'm hoping to just knock in for par here. You know what I mean? And just being like, all right, well, if we get the 9th best quarterback in the conference, we might beat Georgia State and South Alabama, and that'll basically be it for us, or ULM. I don't know. This was a bad performance. Other than anybody on Troy's defense, you guys played well.
Yeah.
Jacksonville State did not play overly well. Like you said, Creel was sort of like a gimmicky guy that really only exists at the G5 level because he kind of lacks that ability to throw the ball consistently and kind of put a team on his back. But when your opposition is only scoring 13 points, like, it's really not that difficult.
No, this is the fewest points Jacksonville State has scored in a win since like 2023. This is so similar to Troy of 2 years ago, where it's the defense did their job. They showed up. They allowed 2 touchdowns and a field goal, but the offense just isn't there. And again, that offensive line is decimated. I understand that, but there's just not a ton of rushing talent. There's some receivers that do interesting things. We like Ra Thomas. We like Higgins.
Yeah.
Epps has done some good things, but there's just not a ton of rushing talent to surround or to alleviate the pressure on these either unhealthy or unsatisfactory quarterback play. And this is just the same game script that we got from Troy over the past, the later years of the Summerall tenure when they won the conference. It's like the defense is great and that's exceptional, but like sometimes you're like, man, looking at how poorly Jacksonville State's offense played, we could have been Arkansas State, where our defense is paper thin. If Jacksonville State's only going to put up 21-24, if we're Arkansas State, we win
right
that
there. Yeah,
exactly. So I don't know. I think this was I'm glad that I know that this is a kind of a newer rivalry with Jacksonville State coming up in recent years, but this is a pretty big local rivalry for the 2 Alabama teams, and I'm very glad that we got to see it. Although Troy, again, just offensively disappointing.
Yeah. All right, well, that ends Troy's season. 8-6, Sun Belt title game appearance and lost to JMU. So,
Good year, man.
season overall. Definitely outpaced what everybody kind of thought this Troy team would have been capable of heading into 2025. Getting up to this next one here, the Cure Bowl. Old Dominion beats South Florida 24-10. I didn't see. Okay, so I saw two different reports on South Florida's quarterback, and I was very confused as to why Byram Brown didn't play for them. There's one train of thought that I read from like a radio station or something, like an article that was like, he's holding out to go into the NFL draft. And I was like, I don't know about that. Let's pump the brakes here, Byram. Sure. I think you're getting some bad information. And then there's like the other side where it's like, he may transfer. He's not in the portal yet. He's on the sideline coaching the other players. And I'm like, what? Either get in the game or get off the like, what, you know what I mean? Like this whole thing where it's like, he's a great teammate and blah, blah, blah. So I didn't know what was going on with him going into this game, which is why I favored South Florida. Quinn Hinicle did his normal thing that he's done when he has started, which has basically been this game and the Arkansas State game last year. He had nearly as many carries as he had pass attempts. He's definitely not anywhere close to being the passer that Colton Joseph is. He profiles, I think, more as, you said it, like a Samari Collier type, or maybe like a Lunch Winfield type runner, where he's just kind of putting the volume of the carries on you.
Right.
And then obviously the 5 turnovers that Old Dominion forced was the difference in this one. South Florida, between their trick play with Chase Leon, Lachlan Hewlett, and Gaston Moore, all threw 4 picks between the 3 of them. And then they lost a fumble. Christian Neptune for USF had a fumble. So that was basically all it was it was like Old Dominion didn't shoot themselves in the foot. They ran the ball fairly efficiently. And basically they would just wait for South Florida to kind of make a mistake, and then they'd pounce. And their defense was really kind of the backbone of why they won, I thought.
Do you know anything about how ESPN calculates its win probabilities?
I have no idea.
Because this is a chart that I simply can't understand. Despite only trailing in this game for, not much of this game. Let me just put it that way. USF was favored for most of the contest. Kind of in from what I'm seeing, into parts where Old Dominion is winning the game. Old Dominion is here up 14-10, and South Florida has a 53% win chance. Okay, that's bizarre. To your Quinn Hinicle point,
I think what it is they factor in the favorite. Like they kind of put their finger on the scale for the favorite with the win probability stuff, and they really are not convinced that the other team is going to beat the favorite until it's like out of reach. I think that's how they do it, because I've looked at some of the charts before and I was like, especially during upsets, if Vanderbilt beats Alabama, you're like looking at it and you're like, but Vanderbilt was up 17-7, like in the second quarter. Why is their win probability like 40%? And it's like, oh, because Alabama was like an 11.5 point favorite. So they just put their finger kind of on the scale of the win probability based on, I think, who is the favorite rather than what's actually happening in the game.
That's bizarre and feels like it contradicts the point of win probability. Quinn Hinicle, good on his feet. He goes 107 yards on 24 carries, 2 touchdowns. He's got the legs to replace Colton Joseph, and I really think that's probably the most important point or part of replacing him. If you're going to roll out the same scheme where it's a lot of QB power, a lot of bash type stuff. Again, I keep comparing it. It's kind of similar to what Georgia Tech does with Haynes King. You need a guy that can handle that amount of carries, a guy that can take that volume. And it looks like Quinn Hinicle can do that. Obviously, the passing, there's a lot to be left to be desired in that space. And I'd imagine they bring in someone to at least compete for that job, a guy that can maybe is not as effective of a runner, but can give you more than 45% through the air. But right now, I mean, Old Dominion's been rolling with Heinkel as the backup for 2 years now. And Joseph has been great in both of these years. So it's been, just a countdown until he enters the portal. I would imagine Heinkel feels like he's got some pretty good job security going into the spring, which will be interesting. I guess this is his team now, his opportunity. From a defensive standpoint, this was great. Old Dominion's defense had been really good this year, really except for that James Madison game where they whooped them. But Old Dominion, against a good South Florida team, albeit without their quarterback and without obviously their head coach and Golish, who's now at Auburn. I think this is a really important win for Old Dominion as we look back in retrospect on this season, because again, you and I have been maybe a little lower than some folks want us to be on Old Dominion. I think when we come back in the spring, when we come back next fall and look back at it, it's like, aside from the, I think the Marshall loss was really bad from a season long perspective, but it's like you lost to James Madison, who made the college football playoffs. I can forgive you for that. You lost to Indiana, who ended the season ranked number 1.
In the college football playoff as well.
In the college football playoffs, and again, the top ranked team in the entire country. So Old Dominion with a weird year, considering that Marshall loss, but I know we just did our reviewing our old takes thing where we look back and it's like, even in that, I think I might have been too low on them. They've played a great ball this year. I guess we'll have to find out how it operates without Colton Joseph.
Yeah, this was a weird year, like you said, for Old Dominion. It's like usually if you're 10-3 or 10-2, you're in the conference title game, no questions asked. And they almost are like the FSU team a couple years back that like got left out of the playoff. And were great. There were reasons why that happened, and those are different from what happened to Old Dominion. But it's just like, yeah, it sucks to have your peak of your like building toward this Colton Joseph run offense team with a good defense. And, you finally got these pieces in at the receiver position and some running backs that could really play and help Joseph out and take some of the weight off his shoulders. And you also did that in a year where there was a buzzsaw in the East that just literally cut through everyone and went undefeated in the conference. And it's just like wrong time. Basically, it was like right place, wrong time. If they had done this a year ago, I mean, they're knocking on the brink of being the G5 like highest bowl representative that isn't in the playoff. They were not going to be Boise State of last year, but they were going to be that team that plays a weird team in a bowl game, and you're like, how did they get to play, Georgia Tech or whatever? Like, how did that happen? Oh wait, that's how that happened. So, yeah, this was a great season for Old Dominion. I do think. I'm not trying to be a hater. I just think if you do roll into next year with Heinkel as the presumed starter, unless he makes like a Brad Jackson move where all of a sudden it's like, oh, I was much better of a passer than anybody thought, I just didn't get the chance. Unless he does that, like the ceiling for this Old Dominion team is going to come down, even with as good as their defense is. You can't have a guy complete 40% of his passes and still win 10 games or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
but, I mean, we saw, if we're comparing him to Lunch or to Smart Collier at Coastal, it's like we saw that guy can win games. He can win games. Yeah. He can win. I mean, he can get you to a bowl game in the case of kind of Lunch with UL. And then Smari obviously got hurt later in the year and really only played like 4 or 5 games total. But I mean, they were rolling with him at quarterback. Yep. So it's sustainable for sure, but if you're at this apex, if you want to stay here, it requires a big step up from Heinkel that, I guess we'll find out come springtime, come early next year.
Yeah, Heinkel, as far as the 5 quarterbacks in the Sun Belt that played this week, you had Rayner, Lunch, Kilcrease, Heinkel himself, and then Barnett. Heinkel easily had the lowest like PFF passing grade of any quarterback of those 5. I mean, he was 3 points lower than Kilcrease, who we just said wasn't good, and he was like 10 points lower than Barnett, who also was not good, but played much tougher competition than, Old Dominion did. So again, like, I'm not trying to hate or anything. I'm just trying to be like realistic. Unless I hear rumblings that he has taken like massive leaps as a passer, this team might cap out at like 8-4 next year if they're really like rolling. So we'll have to see like how that all goes. The next game here, the other one on Wednesday, Louisiana loses to Delaware 20-13. Yeah, this was just a bunch of mistakes by Louisiana. You had a missed field goal, an end zone interception, a muffed punt that was recovered, and that all happened within the first 20 minutes of the game. So, yeah, man, you just can't make those mistakes and still come out with the win. And like, we've been higher than most people on Lunch just based on what he's kind of accomplished. He still is not really there as like a passer to where it's like, oh my God. Now, I know he had 5 drops by his receivers, but that goes back to being the problem with kind of the team is it feels like Desermo either has this really young team or these pieces just did not kind of coalesce this season at all.
I can't imagine that many teams are happier to close the season, many bowl teams, I'll say, than Louisiana. Right. Obviously, 1 win, Georgia State, 4 win, South Al or whatever. Yeah. But of the bowl eligible teams across the country, I can't imagine more ready just to put this behind them than Louisiana, because this was, especially after being in the conference championship game, and granted, you had a much higher floor on your quarterback play, obviously, than until the championship game, but with Wooldridge and who was behind him, but Fields. And so, I mean, you had a guy that I think won player of the year, right? Or offensive player of the year. And then a guy that we said was probably a top 12 quarterback in the conference, but he was Louisiana's backup in Chandler Fields.
Oh yeah.
To kind of come down here, a lot of this falls, we've said all year, a lot on the offensive line. I think I calculated it's like something Zylan Perry and Bill Davis averaged like 0.8 yards before contact in this game, which is just obscene. Lunch has, now this is deceiving, Lunch has one of the highest time to throw in the conference, but that's because he's just so darn mobile and can evade pressure. Kind of uniquely, it's him, Rayner, and Colton Joseph kind of in that top 3, and no one else comes close just because those guys can move. This is another, I mean, Delaware only scored 20 points. This is kind of just like Troy. It's like Louisiana's defense did their job. They got to the quarterback. They made tackles behind the line. They did that job, but 3 turnovers cost them. You talked about the muff punt. You missed the field goal. And you just an inability to get anything on the ground puts such a cap on any team, especially a team with a quarterback that's, passing wise good, but he gets like a B minus grade in that department.
It doesn't help that the year that your receiving core is not exactly stellar, your quarterback has also not been Wooldridge or Chandler Fields. I think that's a bad. I mean, I'm not breaking any new ground by saying I think that's a bad combo to have a guy that's offline a little bit throwing the ball, and then also a receiving core where it's like, are these guys good? Anybody of this group?
Yeah, I mean, they've got to turn it around next year. This is Desermo does, because the expectations are so darn high here at Louisiana, and I don't know. He's certainly not on any sort of hot seat, but I don't know. It's going to start getting warm, right? I think he's going to, especially because we're seeing so many coaching changes in the last 2 years. So many guys are so new to their jobs. It's like he's going to have maybe one of the 3 hottest seats going into next season, because he's done a fine job at a program that needs more than just a fine job. This is not in Arkansas State where you can be Butch Jones going 6-7, 7-6 and live forever.
Can I tell you one thing too that's not going to help?
What's that?
If he comes out and they're 6-6 ish again, they're hovering around bowl eligibility, and Napier comes out at JMU with presumably, I don't know what their portal situation is going to look like. I don't know how many guys are going to bolt for greener pastures, or how many are going to go to UCLA with Chesney. But if Napier comes out and he's crushing it, that's going to look really bad for Desermo, like optics wise, to be like,
oh yeah,
we were really only good with Billy's players, I feel like. And once those guys kind of filtered out and it was time for him to coach up like a new offensive line with these receivers that weren't left over from the previous regime, it didn't go very well. That's going to be tough to stomach, I think, for a lot of Cajun fans.
We talked about this during the year, especially as Florida started to falter, and then when he eventually got fired, it's like, I don't know if you can openly negotiate. I don't know what the contract and rules are regarding that, but it's like there was a world where you just say, Desermo, either demote yourself or find another job. I'm curious if Louisiana reached out. Do you think they ever gave him the call? No. I don't know if they can. They never gave him a call.
I can't imagine that they ever called him. To say what? Like, I don't know what their financial situation's like. I just think it's tough for them financially to probably come in and fire a sitting coach and then hire up a guy who was making like a good chunk of change at UF. Even if he's your coach coming back, I think that's just really tough to stomach. Now, if this was 2 years from now or a year from now, and they had really bottomed out, I think you could make that switch. But 1 year removed from being in the Sun Belt title game for Desermo, there was no way they were ever going to fire him after this season unless they went like 2-10, 1-11. I think that's too much to stomach, like, financially. So
sure.
All right. So that was that game. Then we had Arkansas State almost allowing kind of a fake-ish comeback by Missouri State. They did finish, within 6 points, but Arkansas State kind of dominated for 3 quarters of this game. I mean, it was 31-7 going into the fourth quarter. And then Missouri State scores 21 points at the end of the game to kind of make it, I guess, appear more competitive than it really was. But I don't know, man. Like, this was a good performance by the offense. Defensively, these are still some of the issues I have where it's like outside of the pass rush sometimes. We don't really have anybody in the secondary or anything like that really makes a difference. So,
I mean, you said sometimes Arkansas State 8 sacks in this one. That unit has just come absolutely alive. And I it's hard to tell if it's coaching, if it's personnel, if it's like the D-line coach, or if they're drawing it up. But that unit has been critical to Arkansas State's success over the past several weeks, and is a big reason that they're in a bowl game to begin with. They upset Troy, that we now know ended up in the conference championship game. This team lost to some bad teams in Louisiana, in ULM. So again, just so critical to this team. There were a couple things I was watching for in this game. The first one was, of course, Corey Rucker. We talked about if they force feed him, he can become one of the highest most reception leaders. One of the reception leaders in Sun Belt history. I don't know why that's tripping me up so hard. They get him 6 catches for 166 in this game. So he's going to finish 3rd all time in Sun Belt receptions. Before this game, he was already the conference's all-time leading receiver. It would have been a big ask. I think he would have had to get like 3 catches more per game this season, but could have finished as the all-time receptions leader in the conference. He would have surpassed. I know it's J.D. McKissick at the top. I don't know who's second, but I think it might be Sam Pinckney second.
I think it was Pinckney. Yeah,
but that was one of the big things I was watching for. Is just like how is he going to finish his career? Because he for the first 6 weeks of this season, really nowhere to be found. And he turned it on. He turned into himself in the back half, kind of corresponding with the defensive line success where he was back to 6-7 catches for 80-90 yards a game. So, it's just good to see a guy like that go out on top. And then obviously I tweeted about this. Master Chief and Butch Jones. That gives Butch Jones some cool points that he just does not deserve.
Yeah.
I don't want to imagine sitting down with Butch Jones and be like, all right, so who's going to drive the Warthog? Like, that's not something I want to have to imagine, but now I do. That was a really fun and, kind of, I think the Pop-Tart Bowl and now the Xbox Bowl, they're the ones keeping this bowl game dream alive as we talk about, again, the powers that be dismissing bowl games as an accomplishment or something worth even participating in. So really enjoyed, that extracurricular part of it.
Yeah, Butch Jones is looking at Master Chief going, you want to go hunt the heretic this summer? Like we could get like a tree stand together and everything else. Or the flood maybe. I loved the championship, or not the trophy that they gave Rucker with like the achievement unlocked player of the Xbox player of the game. Loved that. Yeah, that was awesome. They did a great job with the branding, like really leaning into it. You've seen other bowls do that, like I guess the Cheez-It Bowl to some extent, the Duke's Mayo Bowl where they slime the guy out like with the mayo at the end of the game. Like that's insane. Yeah, they did a great job with the branding and everything. This was a good win for Arkansas State. Like you said, the pass rush was there. Secondary was a little soft. I mean, Missouri State's quarterback threw for 349 and 4 touchdowns. So it wasn't exactly like, they were doing a great job. Like fourth quarter was rough for them, basically. And for some reason, ESPN's not letting me pull up the box score of this game, so I have no stats other than the leaders for every category. It just keeps telling me there's not a box score. I don't know why.
I think here I've got it here. Okay. Some notes: Arkansas State did not run the ball well, 2.8 per carry. Kenyon Clay leads with 11 for 53, which is actually pretty darn good. But then you look at Devin Spencer was 6 for 20 some odd. Chauncey Cobb had to carry 4 team carries. I can understand 1 or 2. What do you mean 4? Did you just lose the guy? Like, wait, that's crazy to me. And I tweet about this as well. Jalen Rayner only 3. And I think that's something I want to talk about. They've been phasing him out of the run game over the past couple weeks. And I really don't understand why, because that is what makes him so good. He's a great passer. He was 17 for 31 in this game for 288, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I'll find out if he took any sacks. He took 2 sacks. So he played, he's an excellent passer. But he has this another level that not a lot of guys at this level do. It's like you are either a runner or a passer. You look at it's him, Brad Jackson,
him and Colton Joseph and Brad. And maybe Barnett sometimes.
Barnett, if he wants to have a good game, if he gets in a rhythm or whatever seems to be the juice there. Everyone else is either a runner or a passer, or we're kind of finding out a lot of them are just not good.
Neither.
Some of them are just Tad Hudson.
They exist. They take up space.
So I don't understand if that's protecting him. There could be an angle of, we don't want you running the ball here late in the season. We know we're not contending. Get us to the bowl game. We still want you to play, obviously, but don't get hurt. There's an angle to that. But it was a trend that we kind of saw in the back half of the season. As the other parts started to improve, they took weight in the run game off of Jalen Rayner. Chicken or the egg. Are these other parts, is Corey Rucker, for example, performing better because Rayner's taking the ball less? Or is Rayner taking the ball less because Corey Rucker's finally starting to show up? Hard to tell, really. Not a way to kind of discern that. But as we look at Jalen Rayner, what will be probably his final season next year at Arkansas State, as he enters his senior year, that's going to be something to follow. Is do they keep declining this? Do they try to make it a little more normal where you're throwing the ball 30 times? Yeah, you're running 8-9 times for 40, 50 yards, which is excellent for a quarterback at any level. Or are they going to lean into what this guy can really do and, throw the ball 25 times and give him 12 carries?
I think honestly, if the running game is as poor as it was this season and it's his last year, I think they're going to go all out. I think they're just going to run him as much as they want to, because it's like, what do we have to lose? He's not coming back again in 27. So again, like, the reason it's so baffling, I think, to add to your point, is they don't have a running game. They cannot run the football. So basically, when you take that element away from Jalen Raynor, you're a one-dimensional football team. You're throwing the ball almost every down, or you're doing the equivalent of like taking the ball and spiking it like as soon as you snap it, because you're not getting anything out of Spencer or Clay. Cross, I don't know what his leg is going to be like next year when he comes back. I don't know if he's going to be healthy. It seemed like he tore it pretty early, but you never know the recovery timelines on those guys. If he doesn't come back and play, or they don't find somebody in the portal, or have like a young guy take that spot, like, it could be another rough season like this one, where it's like, if Butch Jones isn't going to find any answers in the secondary, and they're not going to have a running game on offense, like, that's pretty tough to stomach. The reason they won 8 games last year is because they were very like balanced. And if you lose that balance and your secondary isn't good, then you're just a team that's given up a ton of points and having to win every game, a la Texas State. Like, every game's got to be 49-45. And that's just not like a winning formula. You can't win like that.
Yeah, that's where we're at with them.
And then the last game here, Oregon defeated James Madison 51-34. This was like a real tale of two halves. You know, Oregon came out blazing. They scored 34 points in the first half. Dante Moore was kind of doing whatever he wanted. He actually finished the game 19-27, 313, and 4 scores. They were running the ball. I tweeted this out from our account during the game. JMU was getting killed on the perimeter. If there was a swing pass or a screen or like a toss or anything like that, their corners were like not really ready to tackle anybody. And you saw it. There was a big catch and run. I can't remember who for Oregon did it. Maybe it was Benson. Someone caught a screen in the first half and just turned and stiff-armed the JMU corner like 5 yards away, and just ran for like 30 yards. Their safety, JMU's safety, was like, I thought was going to be their leading tackler at the end of the game, because everybody was just getting to the third level, and it was just him taking an angle and cutting a guy off at the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, at risk of playing into the narrative, I think a really big part of this is just ultimately Oregon had better athletes. I think what really describes that or makes that point very strongly is when you look at James Madison's defensive stats up front. No sacks in this one, 2 tackles for loss. That's been James Madison's bread and butter for like 3 years now, through 2 coaches, Signetti and then into Chesney. This team is going to get to your guys behind the line or in the pocket. And they were just getting mauled. Obviously, it's a little harder when Oregon was playing a lot of quick game stuff. Playing, you know, what Oregon has historically done in very modern read RPO type stuff.
Spread it out. Yeah, throw it, like I said, throw it out on the perimeter a lot, or like get guys out to the edge.
Yeah, so you're not going to get the opportunity to make a play in the backfield as often when you're doing that, when you're playing quick game like that. But those guys were getting mauled. As you said, the speed of the perimeter guys, the corner versus wide receiver matchups, the strength of those guys, of the wide receivers, just, as you said, putting corners into the ground, running back, shedding guys off kind of at the second level.
Carrying guys 2 to 3 yards after they've basically jumped on the guy's back. I think I saw that a couple of times.
And I think that's the reality of where we are. Does this make the points that we were making at the beginning of the video or of this episode stronger? No, they probably weaken our arguments in the fact that, you know, it doesn't matter if the Yankees are playing, if the Rays, you know, we can all still be upset if the Rays win the division and still suck, right? Although, you know, they had that year a couple years ago where they were in the World Series. That was it. It was just better athletes. I think other than Wayne Knight, no one from James Madison played particularly jaw-droppingly well. Alonzo Barnett turned it around. The defense, no one was piss poor. You
they were just getting manhandled, basically. There was like no other, and it wasn't like a knock against JMU. They just are not. Here's what I will say, and this gives credit to a previous JMU team. I think what we're seeing now is the 2023 JMU team with Signetti and like all those guys that transferred to Indiana. I think what we're learning is that they were a good team, like in the way that those guys can go on and play at P5s and compete and like really contribute to the number one team in the country. And then you look at a team like this, and I think they're just normal good, like really good. They're not those guys that feel like, oh, all of these guys could move up like to the Big Ten and be okay and like be able to compete. Like we kind of saw, you watch them play a real Big Ten team, and you're like, oh, it's not
it's like
competition's not really there.
I mean, we'll probably see. I don't know if we're going to get the mass exodus that Signetti got, but we're going to see this at UCLA. I don't think Bob Chesney is going to turn UCLA into the number one team in the country within the next 2 or 3 years. I don't know if they'll ever be ranked under Bob Chesney. That's a big ask for him from a program that struggled a lot in recent years. But that will kind of be the litmus test of when we will have the hindsight, the 2020 retrospect view next year when we get to say, well, how are these guys handling, right? If Wayne Knight, for example, who again has just been going absolutely nuts the past several weeks, if he goes to UCLA and he's playing, are they big? They're Big Ten. Yes, they're one of the California teams that came over.
Yeah.
You know, if he's doing that against the Michigan States and the Michigans and the Ohio, you know,
I don't think he's big enough, honestly. I think I know he's got talent, and I definitely agree. I just think like a school like that, even with Chesney over there, I think he might look at them and go, I like Wayne. He's a great guy. He might be able to play on third downs for us as like a Darren Sproles type player. He's not going to be running between the tackles against like Ohio State on Saturday. I'm sorry.
No, I think you're right. But this is to make the point more generally of like, it could be him, DeGennaro. Who knows about Alonzo Barnett? You know, maybe they bring him along. There's any number of guys on the defense that could maybe be brought along. Their performance next year at UCLA is really going to kind of reflective. How good was this JMU from a talent perspective? How good was this JMU team actually?
I don't think they're on. Again, I don't think they're on the level of basically the Indiana team last year and this year, and then 2023 JMU, which largely became that Indiana defense, especially.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's move on to the games that we have coming up. We're just going to go ahead and run through all of the bowl games, and then we're going to take off until after the new year because these bowl games are so spread out at this point. So you will hear us come back after January 2nd, and the Armed Forces Bowl wraps up, and then we'll talk about all of these games that we had. So Tuesday, December 23rd, we've got Western Kentucky taking on Southern Miss. Western Kentucky is a 2.5-point favorite. I think I got to go with Western Kentucky. Southern Miss went out really sad at the end of this year. And originally, I thought they lost the Texas State game because Braylon Braxton didn't play and they couldn't sustain drives with Landry Liddy. Then I watched them play in the finale against Troy, and I was like, oh, wait, no, something is wrong with this team. And like maybe Braxton wasn't fully healthy. I don't really know what the deal is, but I can't trust this Southern Miss team at this stage, especially, you know, Charles Huff's already in Memphis. Your OC is now your head coach. I just, there's too much in flux for me to feel good about, especially where this team ended the season.
I agree with you with the coach exodus already happening there. And a lot of that Marshall color shine that carried them through, you know, the first 3 quarters of the season. Up until kind of those last 2 weeks where they dropped games in consecutive weeks to South Alabama and Texas State, and then ultimately lose to Troy in the conference championship game. We've seen the last year's Southern Miss paint start to peek through. And again, we talk about the infrastructure and the bones of this team. It's still Southern Miss, and that's how it works. You know, you're not going to change the bones of a team in 1 year. I like Western Kentucky in this one. The line is 2.5 in Western Kentucky's favor. Although, of note, ESPN has Southern Miss as 51.4% chance to win. Again, both lines at 2.5 points, it's a pick 'em anyway. So I like Western Kentucky in this one.
And I don't even really know that much about this year's Western Kentucky team, but I'm like, if they're a normal 8-4 team, the way that Southern Miss backslid, I I don't see them being able to beat like a normal football team at this point. I mean, they were losing to some not great competition at the end of the year. Like I don't know. Next one, my game, the Birmingham Bowl, December 29th, Georgia Southern takes on App State. Another reason I'm not excited that I told you before we started recording, both AJ Swan and JJ Cole have entered the portal. So we're either getting a Billy Wiles or Noah Gillen start against Georgia Southern, who is also 0-3 in bowl games under Clay Helton and has lost to interim coaches that never became head coaches. Ohio, in that case, I mean, lost to Brandon Bailey, who fielded one of the worst defenses in college football this year when they played Buffalo in year one. I mean, it's just like he can find a way to lose. So I'm at stoppable force meets movable object territory. I think Southern wins. You can flip a coin on that. I truly don't feel great about it either way, but I just am like, if we're getting a third string quarterback, man, like whatever excitement I may have had is gone.
Sure. I like Southern in this one too. We saw obviously they beat App earlier in the year when they played in early November, so that's obviously something to consider. And again, that was a full strength App team. App's wins, which came few and far between, and two of them included Charlotte and Lindenwood at the start of the year, relied a lot on good quarterback play. Let me give you the yardages of quarterbacks in those games. Against Charlotte, Swan throws for 368. He goes for 294 against Lindenwood. And then you get JJ Cole, 218 against Oregon State, 309 against Georgia State. You get an outlier here at the end. Cole goes 134 against Marshall. But I think maybe both they had a backup. Let me check here. Excuse me. No, he was 19 for 27, the only quarterback in that one. But App relied on quarterback play. They were not a ULM where you can sometimes sneak wins despite poor play out of that position. So I like Southern here. I'd like to see them. We won't see it, but I'd like to see them give Weston Bryant some time. I'd like to see, just kind of the options outside of Arnold, outside of Camden Brown, the guys that are, kind of filtering out. I'd like to see the offensive weapons and what that looks like. I also want to see a marked improvement from the defense. I know you can't turn water into wine.
That's not going to happen. But yeah,
I don't know. Again, we're using defensive coordinator as a scapegoat, because those are the first chips to fall before it's eventually the head coach. If we're putting it on the coordinator, you have a change here now. I'd like to see something positive. You can't turn water into wine, but something has to change there, or else it's going to be the same damn thing next year.
Right. I think in this game, I don't think it really matters. I have seen Billy Wiles play at Southern Miss and a little bit here against Southern Miss this year. And then I've seen Noah Gillen play too. I think a lot of Georgia Southern's defensive stops on Monday are going to come from bad throws, killing drives, taking a sack, waiting 7 seconds in the pocket and getting sacked, things like that.
I think, and Russell Westbrook, avert your ears for this one. If Georgia Southern wins, it's going to be an App State loss and not a Georgia Southern win.
Right. Tuesday, December 30th. I have not been able to find. I assume Samari Collier's not suiting up for this game. I have no idea who's going to start at quarterback for Coastal.
I mean, we could ask him.
Maybe. He apparently is applying for another year of eligibility with the NCAA. Okay. I don't know if that's going to be granted. Now, I don't know if they count it. He played half the year, but he didn't start early because he just didn't start, not because he wasn't healthy. And then he only missed kind of 3 games at the end of the season. I would like to see him back for another season, but do I think the NCAA is going to grant that? No, I don't, sadly. So this might be a Tad Hudson start. Louisiana Tech, future Sunbelt member, is a 9.5 point favorite. I'm taking Louisiana Tech. If Samari Collier can't go, which I haven't seen anything that said he can, I don't like any of the other options at quarterback for Coastal. I don't know.
I mean, if Tad Hudson flounders like we anticipate, you get to turn to MJ Morris. Awesome. That's just great. Glad we're doing that. I like Louisiana Tech. This is going to be my first time watching them with a real eye. Again, you mentioned future Sunbelt team joining the conference next year. I don't know. I'm sure the conference is all over this. I can't imagine the individual teams are looking at it. But for me, this is a fun introduction to a team that we're going to have to become acquainted with very quickly. So I'm looking forward to it a lot, and probably more so than any of the 4 remaining bowl games that we have.
Mm-hmm. And then the last game I have here, or that we have here, the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. It is Texas State taking on Rice. Rice, you may remember, beating Louisiana in the first game of the season, 14-12. They run sort of an option style offense, which is, a neat little wrinkle. But they have not been a good team this year. They've lost games to Florida Atlantic, UTSA, North Texas, and South Florida. Put a combined 108 points on them in the last 2 games of the season. I think that Texas State ends their Sunbelt tenure with a W. I think they put a lot of points on Rice, and if Rice is running that option style, that is not a recipe for success when you run that style of offense, because once you get down 2 scores, it becomes Panic City. Take it from a former option guy who's rooted for an option team.
Brad Jackson's going to have a field day in this one. He's got 3,050 yards on the year. I think he ends the season having thrown for 340 yards, or 3,400. I can't talk, man. Which is great because we host a podcast.
Yeah.
I think he throws for over 300 in this one, and he's such a great runner. He could add 80 on the ground, and I wouldn't blink about it. He's going to be going to keep an eye on him even as Texas State departs, despite all of our gripes towards them and, readiness for them to let the door hit him on the way out. I'm really excited to watch him over the next couple of years because he is Colton Joseph-esque in terms of play style, in terms of ability from what we've seen. And he's doing it as a redshirt freshman.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think they end their tenure with a W over Rice. And then good luck with the Pac-12, I suppose. Zeke, as we wrap up here, any last thoughts, and tell folks where they can find you on socials?
No, man. Thank you all so much for watching. This will be our last episode as you hear it of 25. We'll come back early 26 to recap. Obviously, these games we'll probably do. I don't know what our draft looks like this year. Last year, it was really only Mike Green was the only guy of interest. I don't know if we've got anyone.
We definitely don't have anybody of that caliber.
Right.
I've seen some draft stuff. Somebody who's a Georgia Southern and Miami Dolphins fan sent me this mock draft, and I think they were in the 5th round. They had Camden Brown going to the Patriots, and so the guy tagged me and was like, "If I have to watch Drake May catch bombs from Camden Brown, I'm going to pull the rest of my hair out." And I was like, "Yeah, that would be sick." I haven't seen a lot of draft stuff for who we've had in the Sun Belt this year.
I mean, I think the big 3, this is probably excluding some really good defensive seniors and some really good offensive linemen because it's hard to get a real grasp of what they look like draft-wise. But I think it's reasonable. Hurst could maybe go as a UDFA, and that he's either day 3 UDFA, Rucker and Ted, and as you said, Camden Brown. So maybe we have some preseason snaps from Sunbelt guys. All day I've been working at like 5 miles an hour mentally. I don't know what's up. But other than those 3, I'm sure there's linemen or safeties or something that we're not thinking about. But so anyway, I say all this to say this wraps it up for 25. We'll be back in 26. Of course, to wrap this up, talk about some of the offseason stuff. We'll talk about the portal, keeping an eye on Colton Joseph, where he goes. Following the exodus out of JMU, but maybe then an exodus in from Florida or maybe not. I don't know how those players feel about him, but thank you all so much for watching us this year.
Yeah, as always, you can find the show on Twitter at Warm Weather Fans. You can follow me on X at Watch the Stone, and obviously our TikTok at Warm Weather Fans, YouTube Warm Weather Fans. As Zeke said, we will be back next year technically to talk about the end of this bowl season and maybe any other news that may crop up in coaching stuff or transfer portal stuff. We'll hit on that as well. But thank you all for tuning in. This has been Warm Weather Fans.